Welcome to Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. This is not your typical financial radio show. As a licensed CPA, insurance agent, and investment advisory representative, Chris coaches his clients on a holistic view of financial well-being with an objective of providing a complete financial strategy to fund life's goals. Chris is here to guide you down the path to the financial serenity you deserve. Now, here's Chris Cooper.
All right. Good morning. Big day today. This is Super Bowl weekend, and I'm pretty excited. My Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, and I'm also excited because in studio with me today, I have the actual producer of my radio show, Jim Modglin, in studio with me. So I have to be on my best behavior and you're going to make me look really good today, Jim. How are you?
Everybody's going, who canceled? Who didn't show up? He grabbed me from the other room.
I have a real radio professional in here with me today, so I have to really, man.
I can.
Yeah, your whole job is to make me sound better on the.
You're doing fine. On screen. You're doing fine, man. You're okay. You're good.
Thank you. So thanks for coming in, Jim.
Yeah, Super Bowl Sunday. I'm kind of excited too.
Right?
It's all good.
You're gonna have a three-peat or what? What's the deal?
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
The challenge is when I was 10, and this was 1980, so I'm showing my age, I was a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan.
Really?
Dick Vermeil was the coach.
Yeah.
It was back then, you know, and I don't know why. I live in the Midwest. I don't remember. I had a football helmet clock with the Eagles helmet on it, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
This was so, but I'm still a Chiefs fan. So that's all good.
Well, it's in the state. For now, right?
Yeah, for now. Yeah,
we'll see. I think the three-peat's really cool. There's all the haters out there on the social media thing, and
always will be.
Brady was the same way. You know, they all are.
Yeah,
Montana. People seem to like Montana.
Be the same way.
But,
hopefully
it's
just a good game to watch.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because we're going to a party that's kind of mixed. On who's really interested in the game and who's just there for commercials and food,
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, I always get in trouble because I tend to make fun of the halftime show. And then all my friends' wives are like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? You're ruining the halftime show. I'm like,
be quiet. Yeah. No.
So anyway,
that's good.
Well, so Jim and I were talking a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, but about some things. And Jim, this time of year, you're getting tax documents just like everybody else, right? So we were talking a little bit about some of those questions you might have, and I'm going, well, that's that event that I hosted just recently on taxes. Tax freedom, cut the cord with the IRS, and one of the things I always start that workshop with that's just so funny is the whole cut the cord movement that we had 4 or so years ago. Was it 4 years ago? Maybe it was a little longer.
A little longer than that, yeah.
We all wanted to cut the cord with the cable companies because we felt like we were getting ripped off, right?
Right.
And cut the cord from the IRS because I feel like on the tax side, no one really feels like, we should be paying our fair share. We feel like we're already paying too much,
It's our money.
Yeah. Right. And
we want more of it back.
And so it's just kind of, I was like, well, this whole cut the cord movement, it really relates very well to taxes on a business and individual level, quite frankly.
Right.
So Jim doing the media stuff that he does for me and my producer, he actually said, well, hey, why don't I do a dual purpose here? I can come learn about why taxes suck and what we can do about it. And at the same point in time, come in and record my show or record my event. So it was great. So thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a really interesting event just from the content perspective. You know, I mean, it was like, things you maybe kind of knew a little bit about, how taxes work, how that process goes, but just revisiting it in a really tight, complete way was really interesting. So kudos to you for putting that event together.
Well,
hopefully the people that attended got something out of it.
I think so. I mean, we got a lot of people that are going to come in and talk about what we can do to help them, right? And that's important. We want to help serve those community, the people in our community.
And I can't imagine most of those people in the room weren't thinking like me as a small business owner. It's like this time of year, I'm waiting for the 1099s to show up, and trying to figure out, I think I know where I'm going to be this year and what the outcome is going to be, but I'm a super type A guy. Yeah. So technically I think I had my taxes quote unquote done by about January 3rd. Now it's just the waiting game to make sure, all that stuff's coming in too. Sure. But then it's like the whole shift and the mind shift is, okay, here's what this year is going to look like, but what should I be doing differently to make next year a little better, right? You want to be better than
you
next
do.
year, right?
And that's a really good point there, because a lot of people, when they think about taxes, all those things that we get, we're waiting still to get in the mail. They'll be coming here over the next week or two. They'll be finalized, right? For the most part. Right? Some of the more complicated stuff.
15th is the latest.
And some later stuff for the more complicated, like K1s and things like that. But for the most part, those things start coming in. Well, all that stuff's already happened, right, Jim? Like that stuff's the 2024. Now it's time to think about 2025. What can we do differently? And when you get, when you go through a tax preparation service, or you have a CPA local doing your taxes, they're thinking about what happened in the past. And that is really what I would say is that more micro view. We covered this in the workshop, right? The micro view of taxation. What happened in the past? What did I do here? And quite frankly, based on what I already paid the government in 2024 and what I might, have to owe, or what my liability is, what's the difference? That's what you technically owe or get back in 2025, right? And that's great. But all that is really is just a function of what happened in the past. So what I like to do is focus on that macro view of taxes. And there's a lot of folks out there that have had this conversation with a financial advisor that'll try to say, hey, what can I think about differently on their taxes? And their financial advisor will go, well, you know what? You should probably ask that question of your CPA. And then they go and talk to their CPA or their accountant who's thinking about the past and looking at what they reported. And they go, well, you're talking about 2025 and beyond. You should really talk to your financial advisor about that.
Right. Well, you made a good point in the workshop too about, tax laws are written in what?
Pencil. Yeah. Right. It's a big deal. They change. And that's an accountant focuses on, or a CPA or a tax prep service focuses on what happened in the past based on the laws that are written today. I focus on that macro view. Where are taxes potentially heading in the future? What are they going to look like? And what can we do differently tomorrow to help plan for that future? And that future extends, as we talked about, a lot longer than many people think about, right?
And and you teed that question up to the group too. It's like, do you think they're going to go down, stay the same, or go up? And I don't think anybody in the room said the first two at all.
So spoiler alert, folks, for folks who do attend one of my events, especially when it's taxes, I start off with that question. Are taxes going to be lower, stay the same, or higher? Those are really the three directions they can go. I have never had a single person say lower. And quite frankly, I think I'm 99%, and it's probably 100%, honestly. I don't track it scientifically here, but everyone says higher. Right. And so we start that event off talking about some math to prove that, because I don't like fake news. I don't like just anecdotal information. So I do dive into expenses of the U.S. government a little bit in budgets. We talk about the growing concern of the national debt. But ultimately, it's all to tee people up with knowledge and then figure out, okay, is this anecdotal information I'm hearing, is that risk real? And then, quite frankly, then we spend the time transitioning to what can we do about it? And that's that future conversation.
Yeah, people want to know, what can I do? What is in my control that I can change and do? I have no control over the standard deduction. I have no control over, what I'm allowed to itemize, because I run a small business, so itemized is my world on that too. But all those things change, like you said. The laws always change. You don't know what's going to happen when you dive in the following January and go, okay, where are things lying now? And usually they aren't always playing in your favor either, right?
they are not.
No.
And that's the last thing on our mind, right? We want to focus on our business. Right. We want to focus on transitioning to the new year, enjoying. Same thing with W-2 owners, right? Or W-2 employees. Sure. We want to make sure we're transitioning into, when do we get our bonus? What can we do for vacations? All those kind of things. The last thing we want to think about is tax preparation for the future. You know? But while it's so fresh on our minds, while we're thinking about taxes, I encourage everybody to think about that tax planning mindset, because we have plenty of time to do something different. We still have time all the way up into the fall to do something different. But man, oh man, think about what you could do with a whole 10 months to plan in advance.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
I think that's why I dive in so early, because I think if I waited till, tax day, I feel like a portion of the year's already gone by and my mind's on the past. And I want to be focused on forward, maybe it's just a way of thinking.
I think it's a great way of thinking, though, is because you want to have that that thought process of what can I do? If you have more runway, and that's the other thing I talk about in those events, the runway we have to make transitions and make positive impacts to our future. Those things are important. We want to take advantage of the time we have to make good strategic directions for the long term.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The other thing that's interesting, we always, every political atmosphere shifts taxes slightly.
Sure.
You know, and I think that's always fun to talk about.
Well,
too.
we talked a little bit about the, what's going to happen at the end of the year. Is Trump's first term
Tax Cut Jobs Act, right?
Yeah. Is it going to hang around? I think it's good. Like you said, I think it's going to stay.
I think so.
I think it'll make it through again. We don't know for how long, obviously, but
Well, Jim, how often do we have elections in this country?
I heard last night that's really cool, or at this workshop I recently went to. Yeah, I believe it's every 2 years.
It is every 2 years, right? So because it's every 2 years, we have to think about those kind of things. And right now we have not that this is necessarily a good thing. I will say I lean more right, but at the same point in time, some divided government isn't necessarily a bad thing because it kind of creates a little bit of a stagnant government as well. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like less government. So. But right now we have a Republican-controlled House, Senate, and obviously the president and presidency. And so what's going to probably happen is the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that is going to set to expire in 2025 is likely to extend. That's what I see.
I think so.
And most of the folks that we talk to that are experts in this field would tend to agree with that as well. And so what does that mean? In my opinion, if tax risk is still high, short term, at least, we think that tax risk might be a little bit more advantageous, or at least stay where it is today, which is also considered advantageous from a historical perspective. Again, get back to that runway. It gives us a longer runway to make some proactive changes that can impact our legacy. So, very important.
All right, you're a small business owner. I'm a small business owner. From your perspective, today, 2025, what going forward, if you've got a client who comes in and talking to you, they're running a small business, or maybe just not, maybe they're, whatever. What's coming up? What's coming up that people are learning about? Maybe they do differently. Is there something, across the board, like, oh, maybe this is a change I need to make, or people just going, I just want to pay less taxes.
Most people
make it happen, or make me figure out, look at my situation and make sure I'm paying the absolute bare minimum I have to pay.
That's your fair share, by the way, right? Your fair share is the bare minimum you have to. Absolutely. I don't care how much you make or how little you make.
They play the itemized game. That's 100%. Their game. I'm just playing by the rules, right? But,
absolutely.
So is there something popping up with your clients right now?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is to understand your business, understand your business expenses, and really this is good for everybody, but it's especially important for business owners. Understand your expense line items. Save for your future too. And how can you do that in the most tax efficient way, right? So a lot of people don't think about things like, we get free money when we work for a W-2 company and we have a 401k match as an example, right? That 401k match is money that we leave on the table if we don't contribute to a 401k. Because it's not like the employer is going to give it to us in our salary if we don't get that minimum to get that match. So that can get free money. Well, if we're a business owner, what can we do to save for our future? And most business owners, where do we put all of our money, Jim, in our business? It's our biggest asset is right back into our business, which isn't a bad thing. No. We control it. We're the CEO. It just makes sense. And quite frankly, it supports our income stream. So it's kind of that first and foremost, right? But that additional cash flow, what can we do to diversify our financial future, potentially looking at some type of retirement plan, whether it's an IRA, 401k types of vehicles, and then figure out, okay, what's my tax diversification on that? Should I be looking at traditional? Should I be looking at Roth? What are my goals? What are my objectives? And if you're a business owner, what is my potential exit strategy as well? So succession planning, legacy planning. Do I have a child that maybe wants to or is involved in the business and maybe wants to have the ability to acquire that business so that I maybe have an exit plan? Right?
Do you think you could generalize it, right? Or most business owners don't think about that until it's time to do that, or
let's just make this real. Yeah. I'm in this business. You work with me, who is in this business, and I'll just call myself out. The very first thing I think about, and Jim, I'm sure you agree with me on this, I don't think about my future financials and retirement. I think about who I'm talking to that day, what my meeting is that day. How can I help this client
when
today?
you're in the grind? And you're trying to generate, and that's what you think about.
It is. So we tend to, it's the analogy of the gardener or the landscaper, right? The professional landscaper. They make these wonderful hardscape, patios, great plantings, perfect, just beautiful places, very Zen-like. They go home. Do you think they want to work on that for their yard? No. So their yard never gets treated the same way, right? They're done. They're exhausted. So that's the challenge, right? So as business owners, we tend to put these things off because we focus on the things that matter to our daily operations. We miss the boat on thinking about spending some time going, oh, you know what? When I created this company, I was just hoping that it would be successful. I was looking for my right clients, how to get the right people in the door, how to build my business and practice, and then how to fund it, and what vendors I need to support me. We don't think about saving for our retirement. We don't think about our legal structure. These things kind of tend to go to the wayside. Next thing you know, you're going, holy cow, I actually pulled this off. I'm 5-6 years in, and this is actually producing a steady stream of income. And, I don't know if I've got my stuff together, to say it nicely. So I encourage people this time of year with spring kind of coming up, like, what kinds of things have accumulated over time that I've just kind of been like, oh yeah, I don't know if that's right. I really need to think about this kind of stuff, right? How can I do some things differently? Most of our assets as business owners are tied into our business, but we still need to think of that diversification concept is still prevalent. We just got to understand what that means. And part of that is eliminating our partnership with the government, because that is, if you're a business owner,
terrible partnership.
That's the problem, right? Is we have that much more stake.
Forced partnership.
That forced partnership is huge. And we covered that, right? I love talking about it because everyone's like, man, this guy on the radio is talking about this forced partnership I have with the IRS. Like, I don't have a partnership with the government. I'm like, yeah, not all partnerships are good. Not all partnerships are by design, right? This is something that is forced upon us. And quite frankly, at a rate we cannot control.
No.
And that's what's unfortunate. And it's more specific for business owners because of how the process works, what we have, the deduction side of it. We have more unique tax savings opportunities, but we also have a heck of a lot more risk.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to think about things differently. So a lot of the things that I focus on for business owners this time of year is what can we think about from a planning perspective? Got a lot of folks on my network that look at, different levels of health insurance coverage or disability coverage, those kinds of things. Setting those up can reduce your taxes and protect you and your family, because these are things we don't think about. When we're starting our business, we're thinking, oh my gosh, how can I create an income stream?
Right.
The last thing you're thinking of, and my wife just mentioned this, she goes, Chris, I think we're covered in case something happens to you and you pass away. I'm like, yeah, you're good. Family's good on that, right? I'm a life insurance agent. I make sure I take care of that stuff, right? Then she goes, and if something happens to you and you end up needing care in a nursing home or something, like, we're covered there too. I'm like, 100%, we're good. She goes, well, what happens if you just have a stroke and, the whole get hurt and can't work kind of thing? I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's a potential problem, right? So we have to make sure we think about those disability situations as well. So there's things you can do to actually take advantage of tax code in that can be very valuable. So I encourage people to think about those kinds of things. And then how can we structure our business more effectively?
Yeah, I think that's on my mind right now. Okay, 24 was what it was. Can't really do anything about it now. But how can I make 25 a little bit better?
Yeah.
And make that extended loan that I give my partner less and less. Or make sure I at least maybe get some of that loan back.
Or at least just have a control, right?
Yeah.
We can't eliminate that partnership. No. But what if we can take some of the rules that do exist? And the best example of a rule that exists is we've all heard of the term 401k, right? Do you know what the terminology of 401k really is? Where it came from?
I may have in the past, but it doesn't come top to mind.
All that is a section of the tax code.
Oh,
it's not some fancy name.
Nobody had time to name it.
Yeah. At least come up with a name. Like, that's what always frustrates me about states too. Like New York, South Carolina, North Carolina. Come on, guys.
Get them a new one.
Why do you have to be new? Why can't you just be original, right? No, they named it the 401k as a section of the tax code.
Got it. Okay.
So what can we do to maximize that section of the tax code to be more advantageous to us without necessarily deferring the liability of the tax code, which is what a lot of people do in their 401ks.
Sure.
Right. So what can we do differently? And does that make sense? Right. So a lot of people don't think about that with 401ks, but they're under constant attack for future taxation. You look at where do we save our money in today's world, Jim?
Oh, yeah.
401ks, right?
Yeah.
Pensions don't exist anymore.
No.
So this is an interesting generation. We have an aged, older population, baby boomer generation, had some form of pension, but a smaller one, started accumulating in 401ks. And boy, they're savers. They have a different mentality. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Younger generation, and myself included, we are more of a spend generation. Thank you, Facebook. I usually say book face. That's what I should say. That's what I call it. Jim, you know that, book face, right? Thank you, social media, right? We are an instant gratification society. Our parents were not. They were savers. And so the government is sitting on this huge generational wealth that is constantly, they're just sitting there kind of just licking their chops, ready to cash in on that partnership interest, right? And when that comes due, that money is going to go to the government if we don't plan strategically to help our kiddos as well. Because I don't care who you are, you don't want to leave your money to anyone other than your children.
No.
So
you don't want to. You obviously don't want the government to have it.
Do not.
You don't want to have to spend it down to pay for.
Yeah, healthcare
needs or long-term
care.
Yeah,
and that's why I talk about long-term care with taxation too. It's interesting. They're like, well, why are you talking about long-term care from a taxation angle? Well, life insurance, unlike taxes are written in pencil. Jim, you mentioned that, right? I love that analogy. It's perfect because there's an eraser on the other end and they can change the rules. Contract law is ironclad. There has not been a contract in the history of time that has changed to where it becomes a contract where the rules just change right from under your nose. Contract law is ironclad and it's grandfathered in. That is a very different situation. And what is life insurance? It is a contract. So contracts are very specific. And one of the things that are in life insurance vehicles is that contract is guaranteed tax efficient, tax free. So when you have somebody that passes away and leaves you a death benefit, that death benefit is tax free. That is contractual. Same thing with long-term care. If you have a contract that says my long-term care contract offers me benefits for long-term care that are tax free, I don't care what they change the rules on future contracts. My contract, ironclad.
Ironclad. Yeah,
in place. Can't be changed. That's huge. Think about the tax efficiency when you're spending $10,000, $12,000 a month on care needs. Your income is going to go up naturally. That's just math. So what if a good chunk of that money came from a tax-free source?
Yeah.
That's huge.
But you got to find those. Be set up for that.
You have to set it up. And it's not something that you can just, now that this is happening, I need to think about tax-free ways to pay for my long-term care.
Right.
Now, doing that in advance, you have more options, right? Plan ahead, more options.
Everybody wants more options.
I think so, right? We like control. I'm a control freak, Jim. I always mention that too. And I don't think that's just a guy thing. I think that's a personality thing. Like you said, you're type A. You want to do your taxes on the 3rd of January, right?
I do.
It's okay. Yeah. I'm somewhat the same way. I have a real good, it's what I do. I control my numbers. I know my numbers. I know where they are. And I have a basic idea of where I'm going to end up. I have to wait for all my stuff to come in, and then I have to sit down.
It's that fear of the unknown thing.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like the unknown. I want to at least have a bit of information about what's coming.
I'll even take that too.
The corner. Yeah.
Another step on the same way. I don't like to board a plane not knowing where I'm going to sit on the plane.
Right.
Because it's an unknown, right? It freaks me out. So I hear you. That unknown is important, and we want to try to solve for that.
Plenty of unknowns when you run a small business.
There are.
In life, there's a lot of unknowns. But definitely when you run a business, you don't know.
100%.
You have no idea between this month and the next month Is it feast? Is it famine?
And that's what you have to focus on. The last thing. So that's why we want to have plans that make sense and are flexible for us as well. But there are some things we can't control. We cannot control taxes around us. We can control what we do about them and how we utilize that to our advantage potentially. But it's more of a mitigation conversation. I always tell people right away, you can't come into me and say, hey, I want to reduce all my taxes. Make it zero.
Right.
If you do, you're going to have to do something called giving up control. Just anytime you hear these guys talking about how we can make your tax liability zero. Yeah. Okay. Here's the catch. What's this catch? Simple word, lack of control.
Right.
You've given away control of your stuff. Most people don't want to make that shift.
No.
Right.
No.
But we can't control taxes. We can't control inflation, right? It's going to happen. It happens over time. It is what it is. So we have to plan for it. And we can't control some of the ups and downs in the market. So we have to plan accordingly for those kind of things. But there are good news is there are things we can do to make sure we understand and invest intelligently, right? For the long term. And I think that's important. That's, I think, the biggest focus is this time of year with taxes. It's on our mind. Have some good conversations about what you can do differently in 25 so that when that next time, this time of year, it's going to come around. Every year, we're going to have the same dang thing, right? Every January, February, you're going to think the same way. But what if you go on January 3rd, Jim, what if you're sitting there going, man, I don't have to think about what I'm going to do differently in the future because I've already kind of got a good plan. And I feel good about what I'm doing today. That's kind of a powerful position to sit in, isn't it?
That's some peace of mind there.
That's right.
A little bit,
I like that, right? So that's the kind of conversations I like to encourage people to have. What can we do to understand where we are today, what our business looks like, what our income stream looks like, and then figure out, okay, what is that? What can I do differently to put some aside for my future, to make sure that my future self has fun too? That's important. And then how can I make that more efficient?
Well, especially if you're running a business, your own business, that's the point, right? I mean, we all want to do that so we can.
I love my job. I'm one of the very fortunate people that do. Not everyone does, but I enjoy it. So I don't mind doing some extra work every now and then because it doesn't feel like work to me, right? Like I'm hosting a radio show right now. Like that's kind of,
your office.
In my office. That's kind of cool, right? Yeah. Technically, is this work? Yeah, sure. But you know what? It doesn't feel like it because I have fun doing it. And I think that's one of the things that working with business owners is so amazing because you get to see that passion, that fun that comes with it naturally. Now we just need to figure out how to make it more efficient, work for us so that our future can be fun too. And that's, I think, important.
Absolutely is.
All right. So taxes are on everyone's mind. We're getting all this piece of paper about what happened in 2024. Well, folks, that's great, but that's already happened. So my advice, turn the page on 2024. Focus on 25 and beyond. What can we do differently in the upcoming year and really multiple years from there about taxes? How can we be in a better position? How can we plan accordingly? It's part of a complete strategy. It's part of a complete plan. It's what we focus on here at Serenity Wealth Management. So get that financial serenity you deserve. Make sure your taxes are taken care of as well. Tax risk is a big deal. SerenityWealthNow.com for more information. Check us out online. Schedule some time to talk. Check out our events page. And until we talk again, go Chiefs.
This is Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. Request a free copy of Chris's latest book, The New Holistic Retirement, by visiting SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors.